Let me tell you, this is not just another crime story. The story of Nemesio Oseguera Cervantes, a man they called El Mencho, is really a story about a massive global system. A system of corruption, economics, and unbelievable violence, where the line between the good guys and the bad guys gets, well, it gets terrifyingly blurry. And to really understand how we got here, we have to start at the end, with the dramatic fall of the kingpin himself.
Okay, so picture this. It's February 22nd, 2026. We're in Tapalpa, Mexico. It's this quiet, beautiful little mountain town. But hidden deep in the forest nearby, a massive military operation is about to go down. They're all closing in on a single compound, all to capture the world's most wanted drug lord.
And that was the whole problem, right? How do you catch a ghost? I mean, El Mencho was so elusive that the only pictures law enforcement even had of him were decades old, from some minor arrests way back in the 80s and 90s. For years, the most wanted man on the planet was basically invisible.
But then, just 2 days earlier, they got the break they've been waiting for. By tracking an associate, Mexican intelligence finally pinpointed his location, a secluded property just outside of town. After all those years of searching, the trap was finally ready to be sprung.
$5 million. That's the price the U.S. government put on his head, and that number tells you everything. He wasn't just some criminal, he was the CEO of a global narco empire, and he was a massive, massive target.
So, as Mexican special forces stormed the compound, all hell broke loose. A massive firefight erupted. In the end, they got him. El Mencho was captured, but he was badly wounded. So badly, in fact, he didn't even survive the helicopter flight to Mexico City. The kingpin was dead, but what happened next? What happened next threw the entire country into total chaos.
So that begs the question, right? How does a poor farmer's son become one of the most powerful and feared criminals on the planet? If you want to understand the empire, you first have to understand the man who built it. His story starts in a place a lot of these stories do: poverty. He was born in 1966, had to quit school in the 5th grade just to go work in the avocado fields. By the time he was 14, he was guarding marijuana plantations. Eventually, he tried to find a better life in California, but instead he just got caught in a cycle of crime that landed him in prison for selling heroin and then a one-way ticket right back to Mexico.
And this is where the story takes a turn that is so wild you'd think it was made up. After getting deported from the U.S. as a convicted drug dealer, El Mencho goes back to Mexico and becomes a police officer. I'm not kidding, a cop. For years, he learned exactly how the system worked from the inside, who was on the take, how much they cost, and exactly where all the cracks were.
So he takes that inside knowledge, marries into a powerful cartel family, and eventually breaks away to form his own group, the Jalisco New Generation Cartel, or CJNG, and he built it into something the world had truly never seen before, a drug cartel with the firepower and organization of a national army.
I mean, this wasn't just crime anymore. This was straight-up warfare. On May 1st, 2015, during an operation to try and capture him, El Mencho's men used rocket-propelled grenades to shoot down a Mexican military helicopter. It was an absolutely stunning display of power, a direct message to the Mexican government.
And all that power was fueled by an unbelievable amount of money. Experts estimate the CJNG's war chest was over $20 billion. And that staggering fortune was built on a brand new and incredibly deadly business model. You see, while the older cartels were basically just middlemen moving cocaine from South America up to the US, the CJNG completely changed the game. They focused on synthetic drugs like meth and, crucially, fentanyl. They could make this stuff in-house, importing the raw chemicals from China through ports that they controlled. It gave them total control of the supply chain and profits that were just astronomical.
But here's the thing. A guy like El Mencho doesn't rise in a vacuum. His entire empire was built on a foundation of systemic corruption that has been eating away at Mexico for decades. And that whole system can be summed up with one chilling phrase: plata o plomo, silver or lead. It's the simple, brutal choice that cartels give to everyone from local cops to state governors. Take our money, the silver, or take our bullet, the lead. It is the absolute foundation of how organized crime controls the state from the ground up.
And this corruption has really deep historical roots. You see, for 71 years under one-party rule, the government didn't even really try to eliminate the cartels. It managed them. They had this thing called a plaza system, where the government would take bribes and in exchange let the cartels operate, as long as they kept the violence out of the public eye. It was basically state-sponsored organized crime.
But as much as this is a Mexican story, it's also an American one. Because the shocking truth is that a series of U.S. policies directly helped create the very monster that it's now spending billions of dollars trying to fight.
It really happened in 4 key stages. First, way back in the 80s, the CIA was openly using a top drug lord's ranch to train anti-communist rebels. That gave the cartels a kind of legitimacy. Then came NAFTA in '94. It was supposed to boost trade, but it also flooded Mexico with cheap American corn, which bankrupted nearly 2 million Mexican farmers, creating this huge, desperate recruitment pool for the cartels. Third, you have this unending river of weapons flowing south. About 70% of all guns found at crime scenes in Mexico come directly from the U.S. And finally, you've got the disastrous Operation Fast and Furious, where U.S. agents literally let thousands of guns walk across the border, hoping to track them, but they promptly lost them, basically arming the very criminals they were supposed to be fighting.
Which brings us right back to today. With El Mencho gone, the war should be winding down, right? Problem solved? Wrong. His death didn't solve the crisis at all. It just kicked off a brand new era of chaos, and it's all being fueled by the CJNG's most profitable and deadly product ever.
This is what's fueling the new era of chaos: fentanyl. It's a synthetic opioid that's 50 times more powerful than heroin, and this number here, 2 milligrams, that's about the size of a few grains of sand on your fingertip. That is a lethal dose.
And the economics behind it are just staggering. A single pill costs maybe 10 cents to manufacture in Mexico. On the streets of America, it can sell for $10 or more. That incredible profit margin is exactly why the CJNG decided this was the future of their empire.
And this, well, this is the devastating human cost. Overdose deaths from synthetic opioids here in the U.S. have just skyrocketed, and it's almost entirely driven by fentanyl being smuggled up from Mexico. It's a massive public health crisis that was born directly from a cartel's business model.
So when the news broke that El Mencho was dead, the CJNG didn't surrender or fall apart. No, they responded with absolute fury. They unleashed this coordinated wave of violence across 20 different states, burning cars, blocking highways, and even putting bounties on the heads of Mexican soldiers. It was pure narco-terrorism. And this is the heart of the paradox. You see, killing one kingpin changes nothing, because the system that created him is still perfectly in place. There's still an insatiable demand for drugs in America, an endless supply of guns flowing south, deep corruption in Mexico, and a steady stream of chemicals coming from China.
And all of this leads to one final, really unsettling question. The story of El Mencho shows us that this isn't a simple battle of good versus evil. It's a crisis that's fueled by American demand, it's armed by American guns, and it's enabled by Mexican corruption. So how do you win a war when the enemy is also you?